The member for Victoria Park.
Thank you, Speaker. It gives me a great pleasure to rise today to speak to the McGowan Government's 2021-2022 budget. I take this opportunity to congratulate the Premier on delivering his first budget as Treasurer, and for that budget to reflect exactly what Labor stands for: developing and delivering quality education, world-class healthcare and local jobs. I stand here proud to be a member of the McGowan Government and proud of our economic governance during a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic, or at least I hope it's once in a lifetime. In a time when economies around the world are faltering due to COVID-19, our financial discipline and investment in stimulus packages has produced growth of 5.7% in our domestic state economy, eclipsing the other states and Australia as a whole. Indeed, the McGowan Government's response to COVID is one of the most successful models deployed by nation-states across the world. And our upwards trajectory is forecast to continue, with growth of 3.5% predicted in the 2021-2022 financial year. At the same time, the McGowan Government has reduced net debt to $32.1 billion, the third drop in 3 years, and has a projected surplus of $2.8 billion for this financial year. When you consider the events occurring around the world and the ruin that COVID has wrought on some of the world's largest economies, these numbers are nothing short of remarkable. Our strong economic position was not achieved by penny pinching and conservatism. It was achieved through decisive action at a critical time and the enactment of our Labor values. By investing in our local businesses and communities to ensure that they had the capacity to withstand the pressures that the flailing global economy, state lockdowns and border restrictions inflicted. Anyone who thinks of my electorate of Victoria Park will likely think of our bustling cafe and retail strip along Albany Highway, Archer Street and other hubs. As a former small business owner who weathered the global financial crisis, I understand the challenges and stress of meeting business overheads in an unfriendly and uncertain economic environment, while protecting the jobs of valued staff. There is no doubt that the restaurant owners, clothing retailers, small bars, bookshops, gift stores and other diverse local businesses that occupy my electorate worried about the future of their business, staff and families in the face of the COVID pandemic. The McGowan Government protected both small business and their employees' jobs with the implementation of safety nets in the form of lockdown, payroll and rent assistance grants, an investment to date of $4.4 billion. I know how important these grants were to the livelihoods of so many of my constituents, and I commend the Treasurer, the Minister for Small Business and the Minister for Finance for the inclusion of a further $1 billion in this budget to support businesses and the community. Incredibly, at a time when many economies are shrinking and work is drying up, our 2021-22 state budget predicts an additional 34,000 jobs will be created in our state this year, many through the initiatives implemented by the McGowan Government's Economic Recovery Plan, which this budget continues to fulfil. Job vacancies are at the highest level they have been in years. This is a reflection of our growing economy and the endurance of our mining sector, but they also speak to an area of priority for the McGowan Government, addressing skills shortages and becoming a manufacturing economy. The closure of Australia's borders to international visitors, as well as the ongoing restrictions at our state's borders and interstate travel, has shown us all how critical local manufacturing and production is to our economy. Now more than ever, we need skilled Western Australian workers so that we can use our strong resources sector to drive local manufacturing and production in areas like technology, agriculture, defence and renewable energy. My electorate is lucky to be home to both Curtin University and South Metropolitan TAFEs, and I know many of those TAFE students will welcome this budget's $121 million investment in training initiatives. This includes $32 million in funding to subsidise the wages of 300 apprentices and trainees, $9.9 million to support TAFE College lecturer industry placements, $25 million for state-of-the-art TAFE equipment, and $32.4 million to get 300 new building and construction apprentices and trainees working on state government projects. Since coming to government in 2017, the McGowan government has slashed TAFE fees. We have also created 8,000 new vocational education and training places in schools, reflecting a spend of almost $30 million. The McGowan government listens and responds to what is needed in this space. Recently, we convened a skills summit of 150 business and industry organisers, union and non-profit leaders, and much of the Cabinet to determine the challenges and opportunities ahead, and we're pursuing them. In my inaugural speech as the newly elected member for Victoria Park, I spoke about my focus on education and how coming from a family of teachers and spending a decade working in education myself has meant that I very clearly understand the power that education has to address intergenerational poverty. I'm proud to be a member of a government that regards education as a top priority. There is increased funding for education in this budget, with $6 billion set aside for education. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a stressful time for all of us and our kids. In July, the largest study of school student wellbeing ever undertaken in Australia, the Detect Schools study, a partnership between the Telethon Kids Institute and the state government, found that 40% of secondary students were experiencing moderate to severe levels of stress. In response, our Labor government has committed $104 million to provide additional psychologists in public and private schools. We are investing in our schools by continuing to deliver our government's $200 million schools maintenance blitz and with a further boost of $26.1 million. In my electorate alone, over $2 million of upgrades are underway in my local schools. This budget will also deliver $750,000 in funding to Kent Street Senior High School to upgrade classrooms to deliver STEM education. And $175,000 will be delivered to 6 local primary schools in Victoria Park to fund STEM science labs and equipment grants. This funding will go to my old school, East Victoria Park Primary School, as well as Victoria Park Primary School, Lack Lane Primary School, Millen Primary School, Wilson Primary School, and East Victoria Park Education Support Centre. This is part of our Labor government's investment of $486 million in funding to upgrade school infrastructure for STEM classes. We will also deliver commitments to schools I made during the 2021 state election, including new basketball courts for Wilson Primary School at a cost of $150,000 and East Victoria Park Primary School at a cost of $160,000. I am proud that the McGowan government is a government that listens and acts. In response to calls from the community for more nurses, this budget provides funding for 500 new nurses and 100 new doctors to be employed at our public hospitals, with the creation of 332 new beds across WA, including 109 mental health beds. We have boosted health and mental health funding by a massive $1.9 billion to meet unprecedented demand on our services. In my role as a member for Victoria Park, I have many conversations with members of my community about the global pandemic, in which some express fear about contracting the virus and others express fear that their own illnesses or health may suffer as hospitals potentially become clogged with COVID patients. I well understand what it's like to be frightened by your future, for your future, healthcare, having suffered with a rare blood disease in my 20s. At one stage, my prognosis was very grim, and it was the world-class research and care provided by our public hospitals that helped me overcome my illness and regain my life. Our public health system is critical, not only to the health of individuals, but to our state as a whole. The McGowan government has prevented a scenario where our health system drowns under the weight of the pandemic by imposing strict border restrictions and strategic lockdowns. As someone whose life was saved by our public healthcare system, I am delighted that Labor's budget is delivering a $100 million emergency department support package. I also note the $1.8 billion committed to the new Women's and Babies Hospital at the QE2 Medical Centre. I have a strong interest in maternal health and child development and have been working closely with Ingala Raising Happiness in my electorate. I congratulate the Treasurer and the Minister for Health for their commitment in this sphere. As well as my own health issues, I have members of my immediate family who live with disability, and I have a staff member with a disability. It has made me keenly aware on a daily basis of the challenges that people with disabilities face in their lives. The McGowan Labor government is committed to addressing the inequalities that arise from this, and I was delighted in my first year as a local member in this government to facilitate over $315,000 in funding to the Sussex Street Community Law Service in East Victoria Park towards their Disability Justice Advocacy Service. Sussex Street is among 8 organisations which will share in $3.44 million to deliver advocacy services that support people with disability in Western Australia. As part of the McGowan government, I was also proud to deliver a $70,000 election commitment to WA Disabled Water Ski Club in my electorate to fund a new accessible water ski boat. An inclusive society is one that goes beyond providing safety nets for people living with disability. It is about creating opportunities so that they can enjoy the same civic activities as those of us who do not live with disability. One of the highlights of my time so far, my very brief time so far as a local member, was helping announce funding of $5 million to Guide Dogs WA. Members may not realise that all our guide dogs in Western Australia are currently bred interstate. This funding will allow for a world-class breeding program here at home, as well as an accredited guide dog training course, only the second in our country. I am incredibly proud of our support for Guide Dogs WA, who are based in my electorate of Victoria Park. Undoubtedly, one of the key planks of our Labor government's economic recovery plan is our $30 billion investment in infrastructure to be delivered over the next 4 years. With the state's borders closed, this is a major stimulus to our local economy and workforce and will add to the 107,000 jobs created since we came to power in 2017. This has been made possible by careful fiscal management. One of the government's biggest infrastructure projects is the delivery of Metronet, our world-class public rail network. This state budget includes a $5.7 billion investment in Metronet projects. Victoria Park, like many communities across our state, is directly benefiting from this investment. The oldest train line in our state, the Armidale line, runs through the centre of my electorate and provides a direct conduit for my constituents to travel to Perth City and all over our metro area. The funding for the removal of 3 level crossings throughout my electorate and 2 nearby in the electorate of Cannington that are funded in this budget will be welcome by my constituents. Our local level crossings are those at Mint Street, Oak Street and Welshpool Road. The Department of Transport figures reveal that boom gates at the Mint Street level crossing alone are down on average for 6 hours a day. Raising the rail and removing level crossings will remove this inconvenience and accompanying traffic congestion and provide world-class transport infrastructure that allows for the creation of new public space. The Metronet level crossing removal project represents an enormous investment in Victoria Park. I am committed to ensuring that the project develops in consultation with the people of my electorate and serves their needs in a way that enhances their amenity. My constituents will also welcome the $136 million investment that Labor is making in the Leach Highway-Welshpool Road interchange. This intersection is one of Perth's most congested and is currently ranked as the worst intersection across the entire state for crash frequency. The project will deliver a new bridge, taking Leach Highway over Welshpool Road to create a grade separation interchange, in addition to a new roundabout built at the current Leach Highway and Walshpool Road intersection. Construction of this new intersection is already underway. One of the great byproducts of how we have decided to deliver infrastructure upgrades is our commitment to local content. The Leach Highway Walshpool Road interchange is being delivered by local West Australian contractor Leach Walshpool Alliance, and this alliance, as part of the contract, have themselves spent almost $4 million with businesses within a 20-kilometre radius of the project, including with the fantastic Aboriginal-owned and run Jatu Clothing and PPE in Carlisle in my electorate. The Leach Highway Walshpool Road intersection is part of an $11.7 billion spend in this year's budget on major road projects, upgrades and maintenance. While my constituents will no doubt be overjoyed by the spending on our local roads and public transport, Victoria Park is an electorate that has embraced cycling, with shared cycle paths such as the Rutland Avenue project funded by both local and state governments. There has therefore been a lot of local interest in our Labor government's new $49.8 million causeway pedestrian and cyclist bridge, which will connect Victoria Park to the Perth CBD. The existing causeway was built in 1952 and has been widely recognised as posing a hazard to the safety of cyclists and pedestrians. The new bridge will be 6 metres wide with dedicated pedestrian and cycle lanes and completely separates these path users from vehicle traffic. A sign of WA's economic strength is the high demand and growth we are experiencing in the housing sector. Building approvals rose by 88.7% in the last financial year, supported by our government's building bonus. We have seen high demand and growth in the housing sector in my own electorate, with the suburb of St James one of the top 5 suburbs in the Perth metro region for growth year on year, with a 10% growth over the last year. While this is great news for many, Acting Speaker, may I request an extension?
Extension granted.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. This is great news for many, but housing prices can also impact upon housing affordability, as we all know, and that affects our most vulnerable citizens. In response, our McGowan government has invested $884 million in the SHERP, or the Social Housing Economic Recovery Package, lifting the total McGowan government investment into social housing and initiatives to address homelessness to $2.5 billion over 4 years. New initiatives that will impact upon Victoria Park include a $750 million social housing investment fund and a $6 million for a local government partnership fund for homelessness to partner with and co-fund homelessness initiatives tailored to local government areas' needs. I have a number of passionate, committed housing providers in my area that I have been working with closely to address housing affordability. I was particularly delighted to fulfil my election commitment of $60,000 to Connect Victoria Park. Connect is a wonderful organisation that provides social programs and low-cost housing to local seniors. This funding will be used to install and upgrade energy efficiency measures in their properties, including LED lighting, solar and battery storage. Connect estimate that this investment will save them approximately $100,000 over the next decade alone. Our Victoria Park community is serviced by both Kensington and Cannington police stations, and I commend the officers at both stations for their dedication and commitment to the safety and security of our community. I am pleased to be part of a government that supports our frontline workers, including police. This support includes a record investment in the 2021-22 state budget, which includes funding for modern equipment, operational capabilities and new and upgraded police stations to accommodate hundreds of new officers. Police will receive an increased operating budget of over $1.6 billion in 2021-22, plus a further $83.6 million capital investment for the refurbishment and expansion of police stations to accommodate some of the additional 950 police officers being delivered by our government. As part of this budget, we have also fully funded, once again, the $400 rebate to assist WA seniors card holders with the purchase and installation of home security equipment. This $12 million program can cover anything from home alarm and CCTV systems to mains-powered smoke alarms. It is an incredibly popular initiative with seniors in my community, and I was very pleased to let them know that it has been funded once again after being cut by the previous Liberal National Government. As the member for Victoria Park, I am very proud that a priority of my community is the preservation and enhancement of our local and global natural environment and climate action, as well as being part of a government that appointed our state's first Minister for Climate Action. We are also investing in climate action in this budget. Our new $750 million Climate Action Fund will help transition WA to net zero emissions by 2050. This includes $350 million for the expansion of the Softwood Plantation Estate to store carbon and support jobs, and the protection of our southwest native forests from logging from 2024. The Climate Action Fund also includes $206 million for renewable energy initiatives to fuel WA's future, a $118 million fund to invest in future climate-related initiatives, and $50 million to drive new renewable hydrogen initiatives, and much more. The McGowan Government's $750 million Climate Action Fund is in addition to our $21 million Electric Vehicle Fund. As part of our Electric Vehicle Action Plan, WA will be home to the longest electric highway in Australia. This network will include up to 90 fast charging stations and backup chargers at 45 different locations connecting Perth and regional WA, stretching north to Kununurra, south to Esperance and east to Kalgoorlie. If you know Victoria Park, you will know us as the historic home of car yards. When I was a kid, it felt like I couldn't walk 100 metres in Vic Park without coming across a car yard. I can still remember the car yard ads that rang out on my mum's old Corona's radio just over the causeway in Victoria Park. Many of those car yards are still in Vic Park today and now sell electric vehicles. Having the longest electric highway in Australia, due to be fully operational by early 2024, not only helps our environment, but also local businesses in my community. Right now, one of the inhibitors to electric vehicle sales is the availability of charging stations. Our government has addressed that. Now we just need the federal government to back us in and catch up with the US and Europe in putting in place the incentives needed for manufacturers to supply more electric cars to our market. Ms Acting Speaker, I have spoken comprehensively about the McGowan Government's 2021-22 state budget and how it positively affects my community in Victoria Park. I finish on this note of thanks. Victoria Park has one of the highest, if not the highest, proportion of public servants living within our boundaries. I am very pleased to be able to assure them that, due to our government's disciplined fiscal management and superior COVID response, as well as their own fantastic commitment to the strength of our state, we have brought forward the state's wages policy review. This review was scheduled for 2023. As part of this budget process, the wages policy review has now started this week. I look forward to our McGowan Government continuing to deliver for the workers of our state. Madam Acting Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to commend the 2021-2022 state budget to the House.